Alrighty. Hello everybody. Another game in the Lasker Capablanca match. Game 6. Capa won the last game, so let's see how white pieces Lasker can respond to that. We get e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Ruy Lopez. So something different. Berlin, question mark. White hints of maybe. But then we get d4, d6, d4, and then it has probably transposed into a Steinitz variation of the Ruy Lopez. Black breaks the pin. I don't know, this might have been some kind of a threat. White develops. Black sets up his turtle defense here. Pieces in a big clump. Pawns are solid. And rook e1 defends here. So this is now double defended. So maybe if black castles, we can maybe chop and steal a pawn here. Probably have to take the queen first. And then here, bang. I don't know. Black takes here. Probably take here and win. So black has to take with the bishop, and then, well, here the problem is of course that if you take. This is a rude awakening here for white, but I think at this point they can do a knight d3. Blocks the d file, but there's a bit of a skewer going on around the e file, and if they try f5, there is f3, and even this is covered, so black can't get out of that with checks. Oh wait, that's maybe I was thinking that takes here, but black can take back with the knight, so maybe here, and that is the right way to go about it. Now the knight is hanging and the bishop is hanging. Yep. Alright, so probably now that this is a real threat, black chops once here at this moment. White takes back, and then we castle. Now there is no takes. Well, here of course this is always a big commitment. White gives up the bishop. His argument somehow bishop is not as good as the knight in the center here in this position. I don't know, does seem decently strong to me still though, but, and well, white does get a damage structure here, double, but isolated a pawn. Black of course has the bishop pair, maybe grip on the center for now, and well, often can use the b file in these structures. Bishop g5, we can speed 2 more, gets things out. We get rook e8, queen d3 over protections here, h6, bishop h4, and then some extra simplifications. Let's trade the bishops. Bishop pair is again not the most active at the moment. This of course I always like that I feel like it could come very handily to this hole here. But we do get some trades. Well, it's probably harder to activate the dark squared bishop, so black is happy to trade it off. Capa also had an earlier game a few years prior to this one, where his opponent had played bishop g3, where the game continued knight f8, rook a d1, bishop f6, rook d2, queen b8, and then white tried to sack the pawn in a way that, I don't know, maybe he thought he can squeeze the queen into a trap here, but the queen just sneaks around. White tried to cut the roads here, but rook a b8, don't see how it's gonna die. And black Capablanca went on to win on the black side, so he has decent results on this line. The black side, well, this time Lasker takes, black takes. Queen takes is also possible. Well, white looks at the pawn, and black defends it with the queen. You could of course push the pawn. It's possible, but it of course loses one, or loses the grip on d5, and maybe white can plank a knight there. And maybe you don't want to give up the bishop for the knight, because then your pawns are kind of immobilized here, and well, I'm not sure you are gonna be able to even keep the e-file, and well, your structure still has the damage on the queen side. Anyways, so black's not interested of this, but defends the pawn this way and builds a battery here. Pressure here, possible d5s, and then you can't take because of the pin. So white solves that problem with the kind of creative rook e2. It's a well covered square. So now these are no problems because we can just take. Well, rook b8, black's using the b file, which we got. Pop. Because the a pawn is now undefended, but takes ages to go hunt it. And this is hanging. So white defends it with the b3. Then we do get the c5 eventually. This guy has to now move tempo. And then extra simplifications. Bishop b5. So Kappa is happy with the trade apparently, because he's claiming that well, he has the low damage pawn structure, but he can use the pawns like for instance the a pawn, an isolated weakness here as a battering ram. At some point, like we hope is to let, or white takes there, and then we win the pawn back, and suddenly there's only isolated pawns on the white side. Also, this is now again undefended here, so white defends the rook here. Also kind of sidestep any back rank issues he could have. Pretty, and the king is of course coming closer to the center here. Endgame principles. Black says, let's trade the knights. I mean, it's possible. Now there's two doubled pawns, but it's f3. I mean, it's probably still equal, but black has like still their little annoying little push moves around there. Should obviously be equal anyways, but Lasker was not interested. Also, he might want to win since he's down in the match. He keeps the knights on. And well, it's defending e4. This definitely is a one target. Like the rooks could go there, and it's an open file. It looks like a decent pawn though. It also defends the b3 in a way that, and the c4, like so. Then this pawn that looks at the moment really strong is better, even stronger, even though knight e6. Well, knight is eyeing an outpost here, or so white says c3. Oh, one defender lost. Well, now we fix the e-pawn in place. I'll also get some avenue for the king to come even easier to take part in the game. White planks the knight there, maybe I'm trying to hint these holes here. Black says you have no time to do it. White planks the knight, the rook in the place of the knight, but obviously we can't really, even if we go here, we can't really move the knight here without dropping the pawn here, so knight rook e3. Knight again wants to maneuver there and maybe offer a knight trade, and white again is saying no, preemptively. Alright, well, also the knight has some ideas here where it's kind of hitting everything, and then also possibilities here, so it's better to have this already covered. And well, rook's going here, maybe he wants to go here, g3, maybe f4 is in ideas, and then while black starts to ram down the a pawn, wants to, well, basically let's say random move a4 there, maybe we go there and pop this pawn and then a few isolated pawns, maybe we can squeeze the white there for the rest of the games. Of course this is a passed pawn, but it's definitely not going anywhere with the rook flanked at a4. So after a4, maybe some kind of a positional threat. White does a4, big commitment. So we kind of make a backwards pawn there. So the knight is kind of stuck here, covering it. Well, Kappa instantly goes knight, knight, knight. We kick the knight out. Knight is going here. Bum, bum, bum. Maybe we want to play c4. Break the structure that way. Well, Lasker is preemptively defending that. So we come and plonk the c4 with the king. So if it goes with chop, 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 and the king comes and defends backwards. Of course, king in the center is an endgame principle in a way that it's influencing everything a little bit. Of course, it is still king in the center, so black is hinting about maybe we are gonna try to exploit that fact. Well, rook finally gets out of the a file, it's doing nothing there. There was also a possibility of preemptively going here, but then I don't think white takes with the pawn, but with knight, because you win this pawn, and then, well, it's an, like, well, it's possible, but then this is a passed a pawn in a way. Something like this. Well, black didn't want to end up figuring out is this good or not. It's still probably stoppable with the rooks coming here and there, but he didn't want to push too early, and now it's too late. c6. Maybe we play d5. Rook a1. King f7, centralizing their king. Knight 10, another commitment. Knight c4. So finally, well, it's hitting a lot of pawns, so this seems a halfway forced here. Pop. Pop. This is defended now with the king, which is a bit shaky because it can either, whenever it kicked out with the d5. It's probably too early here with them. Pop, pop, queen takes, and you're probably gonna, like, this is, well, it does look a little dangerous, but maybe you're fine here. Yeah, it's a possibility, but probably not in black's advantage at the moment. King looks really in danger there, but it can just about dodge everything. Black plays rook e8, rook e6, and then white instantly kind of forces the things with e5, punk. Kind of undermining the c5 in a way. Oh, black takes. Again, we could have ended up with the d5 first. But this kind of goes into similar stuff with the extra steps of this being chopped first. This we get in a game. King takes here. Black takes on b3. And then, well, black's rook is placed well, discovering this and stopping this plonk. I think this is one possibility where we could try to squeeze here, still keeping an eye on here. But maybe black can just go here, here, and be fine. Chop, chop, chop. Or maybe even here and then chop here, because bang, bang. And black is actually winning. Well, possible. Instead, Lasker does c4. Bang. Well, black takes, and then we take back the pawn this way. It will be a little awkward here because it's not easy to win it back in a way that without losing this pawn. Pop. And then suddenly you realize that black's up a pawn already. And he's squeezing for another. This probably just loses instantly to a pop, pop, pop. King comes here and extra pawn in the opponent game. Not so good. So, well, as for example, instead we attack the pawn this way. Pawn says let's go, and then white goes behind the passed pawn. Rook c4. This is defended, this is defended, this is attacked. Not yet though. Well, we get h4, h5, sorry. Rook e3, give me that. Of course the downside is that chop, 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 you lose this pawn. But black does something different. He plays rook b2, goes for this pawn instead. White takes. Well, now he gets this pawn without losing this. Black says pop. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 versus your 3. Well, white says, how about this guy? Well, black squeezes the king to them. A file, take the pawn, but your king is now stuck here. And then black plays g5, building a passer here. Well, actually here the game was drawn. I thought it would be interesting to see how it would end though, but I guess for them it's an obvious thing. You could have, for instance, tried to squeeze here, but I can play there or even take here because he can do this and this. And well, apparently this is all fine because bang, bang, and well, let's say something, maybe go all the way here. Rook takes, rook takes, rook take, well, check. Is this too much? Probably even this is fine. And well, the king is far away, the rook pawn, the extra pawn is blocked, this all ended in a draw. But g5, these are all interesting too, where we trade the rooks here. Black chops here, but then white gets this pawn, or at least this pawn starts to look really dangerous. I think in general it tends to end up in black like just gives up them. So maybe this is good to take while we get out of the skewer here. And well, it probably ends up somewhere like this guy gets here. Black sacks the rook to the passer here. I don't know, h4, chop, chop. Something, if rook there, rook somewhere, rook here. Point is we get it just in time to defend the pawn with the king, and well, whatever way you do, try to get this through. This pawn is far away from this guy, and something like this could have happened. So after here, they agreed to draw. Fair. Anyways, thanks for watching, and until next time. Ciao.